Hey everyone, welcome back to Pripyat, part 4 today of the mini-series. And for today's episode, we're actually going to be focusing on 3 smaller size builds. Typically, when most of my episodes focus on more or less one larger thing, which takes up the vast majority of the episode, and then usually maybe a couple smaller things in there. But I'd say with this one, 3 equally important, equally cool little builds. But yeah, those are going to be what you see here on screen that we're starting out with, being the Avant-Garde's stadium, which was their football stadium. They actually had their own football club, of course soccer. I don't mean American football, since most of my audience is European, so I might as well say football. But also we're going to be building the Dugar radar system, the very massive radar which sits kind of far from both Pripyat and Chernobyl. And then lastly, we're going to finish up with the very famous Azor swimming pool, which is actually featured in the intro. A nice little clip of it in use back then. But yeah, it's going to be a cool build. Some more PO, little PO going to use little PO with the stadium here, but the swimming pool is going to be the bulk of it for sure, as you could see in the thumbnail for this video. But anyways, let's get into today's build. So, as I said, this is, or was, I should say, the football stadium for the city. It was built for their very own team, FC Streudel Pripyat, which the word Streudel is means builder, which is, I guess, based on the fact that pretty much the entire team helped build the city of Pripyat as well as the Chernobyl power plant. So that is how they got their very own name. And this was their home stadium that they played in, I believe, for only a portion of the life of the team. I couldn't really find a consensus online exactly as to how long they played here, because Wikipedia says they never actually played their home games here, that it was actually going to be that they were setting it up for also the May Day celebration for a game. It looked from what I read elsewhere as well, and that of course that never happened. But I read elsewhere that the stadium was built in the 70s and opened in 79, so I do think at some point they did use it, just maybe not regularly perhaps, because this was, Pripyat after all was a closed, atomic city, which relative to other closed cities in the Soviet Union, I guess it was relatively open, because there's a lot online saying that people had more freedom of travel to and from Pripyat compared to other industrial cities that were closed, or other atomic cities, whatever it may be. But yeah, maybe that's possibly why they didn't fully play here as their home stadium. But either way, this was supposed to be the team stadium, though it was of course also used for local stuff within the city, for I'm sure children's stuff and adult leagues, whatever it may be, just for fun. But anyways, so what we're doing here on screen is just building a very small thing here with PO again, with the cubes, texturing them, and what was more or less looks like a press box and small little entrance for where the team locker rooms would be for the home team and the away team. So the bleachers, the seats here that I used were with some like high school football field pack. So I don't know about, across Europe, but when it comes to football fields and their stadiums at high schools here in the US, like this is just like a carbon copy of the vast majority of stands in United States, football stadiums in US high schools. But the real life one here in Pripyat was a little more cool looking. It had a tunnelway leading from this building here, then building going out to the field, which is where the players would have gone from their locker rooms. But I totally, if I really wanted to, of course I could have done this entire thing in PO, but that's a bit too much, so I might as well use the bleacher stands there that are already, it's fine. It's a small thing, of course. But anyways, yeah, so like I said, this video has 3 builds in it. I wanted to include one more, which was like this riverside park. Not a riverside, it's more of a lakeside park. But this little man-made lake on the north side of the city that was built for recreation. It's also where there was a port. At the entrance of the lake, there was a port for, I think, industrial goods. And then as you continued along, you got to the recreational area with some buildings for, hanging out, probably getting food, as well as, of course, just a little walkway along the lake. And I was going to include that, but it probably would have pushed the episode to 30 minutes, which all the episodes for this series so far have been pretty long. Each one has gotten shorter ever so slightly, I think. This one's the shortest yet, at least. But yeah, I mean, I really like to keep it less than 25 minutes. 20 to 25 minute videos are what I prefer to make, just because I know lengthy videos, I mean, at least when I watch videos of City Skylines as well as just other, non-City Skylines videos, 20 minutes is kind of like, for me at least, the perfect amount of time. Not too long, not too short. But I don't know, I guess you guys can let me know exactly how you feel with, how these videos, the length of them, if you like it or not. Because, I mean, I do cut out, for the most, at least when it comes to all these, this video, as well as I think the previous one as well, I cut out pretty much a lot of, if not all of, the detailing with trees. So just plopping down trees, which, I mean, to me, that's not super exciting. There's, of course, a lot more stuff that I'm doing and building that is more exciting. I leave in small amounts like here when it's, in front of a building or, whatever I was building in. But, if you might have noticed when I zoom out, like there to the right, I did that off camera. Well, I should say I did it on camera. I just didn't include it in the time lapse because, yeah, the video would certainly be very long. But yeah, let me know what you think of the length of these videos, because I mentioned in the last episode that I wanted to do 2 more episodes, this one being 1, and then the next one being ideally the last one, followed with a cinematic video. So I guess 3 videos, but 2 more time-lapse videos. And I mean, that's probably still possible, but I'm still gonna have to do a decent amount of stuff off camera. And that includes what I was already needing to do off camera, which I still actually have to do, which is finishing up parts of the Chernobyl power plant. So nothing like too important, but the very, I guess, the west side of the power plant, which if you look at Google Maps today, you'll see kind of just an open area, dirt with some equipment, which that's when they, that's all the stuff left there from when they built the new sarcophagus, I guess, for the power plant to contain the radiation. So what you see there is not what existed back then in 1986, but it was really just it looks like a harbor port. It has some small cranes and a lot of just building equipment and stuff and some crates and containers, but it was really just where the trains would bring in all the goods and equipment that was needed to operate the power plant. But that's something I kind of wanted to include, but I don't think I will. But yeah, anyways, I kind of want to wrap up this point, which is just, I don't know, like I said, I could finish this series in 1 more episode, but if you want to see 2, that'd make it a little better, because I'd be able to include a few more things. But if you're eager to see me get back to Berlin Noir, because I'm certainly, eager to return to that city as well. I miss certainly building in Berlin in 1929, and I know many of you have, expressed that you are excited for me to get back there. So let me know what you think, if I should just make it 1 more episode or 2, and I'll try my best to, make whatever you guys prefer. But anyways, moving on from that, we are now working on the radar system. So this is the Dugar radar, which is actually, that's not the name of it. That's just a class of over-the-horizon radar systems that the Soviet Union developed. There was a couple across the Soviet Union. This was one of them. They're basically, hence the name Over the Horizon. They were meant to be able to pick up any sort of ICBM missiles launched over the horizon that typical radar would not be able to find until it was too late. So this was just an early warning detection system, and they look certainly very cool, kind of scary. There's a lot of kind of funny things to do with this particular one, and so they called it the Russian woodpecker because apparently it put off this just extremely high frequency that other radar systems and radios could even pick up, and some even had to develop a system to cut out that particular frequency because it was so prevalent in radio broadcasts, whatever it may be, that they had to develop something to actually filter out that frequency. And yeah, so it was no joke. This thing was large, powerful, and would have done its job perfectly fine. This one was aimed towards the west, since it was on the western side of the Soviet Union. And there was also some on the eastern side of the Soviet Union. Basically, just, of course, to detect any missiles coming from the US. And, of course, fortunately, it never came to that. But there was always a couple close calls. I'm not sure if you've heard of them, but at least with the US, we always, in history and TV as well, they like to bring up the close calls when kind of buggy radar systems go off saying there's a projectile coming, and then instances in which one time someone in the Soviet Union declined to react because they weren't entirely certain if it was actually a ICBM coming, and of course they saved a whole lot of lives by not committing to saying that was in fact a ICBM, because it was something, I don't know what actually set it off, but whatever it was, it certainly got us close to World War III. But anyways, moving on from that, so with this radar system, there was a small town there. I don't know the actual name of the town, but it was relatively small. I imagine it was mostly just served for the workers of this radar system and the small public buildings here as well. But there was a school, there was a clinic, which is that building right there, as well as a grocery store. So, it was more or less a bona fide Soviet town, which included all the necessities that they required. But it was still small nonetheless. The residential apartment buildings there that I used are probably a tad bit too tall, but I didn't really have any good ones that look good that would fit in here. I probably could have found some on the workshop if I looked and subscribed to some, but I'm still trying to keep my subscriptions not too many. I certainly, as well as I'm sure many of you and many YouTubers, of course, have the unfortunate addiction of just visiting the Steam Workshop and just subscribing to way too many things. So I've been working on that for some time now, and I've definitely gotten better, because when I was working on my very first city that I started YouTube, which was Las Colinas, I subscribed to just so much junk that I didn't need, that I was never going to use, and that certainly slowed the city down. So when I started Berlin Noir, I took that into account. I didn't subscribe to as many things. There's probably still some things that I don't necessarily need, because you never know, you plan on using something that, whatever it may be, whether it be a prop or a building, then something else comes out, or perhaps you find something else that's better and you just kind of forget about it. And that's even happened with this city here. It's a mini series, so there's not going to be a ton of assets to begin with, but there's still definitely some things once I eventually create the workshop collection for the Patreon so they can play the save game. I'm gonna have to go through and kind of remove some of the things just for their sake, because it's just, whenever possible, it's best to reduce the number of assets and mods you have unless they're absolutely necessary. But anyways, we're getting close to finishing up this section here with the radar system, just finishing up some of the small details here, placing down some grass, and of course flags. I mean, it's not a Soviet city, I feel like, without a bunch of Soviet flags and some small flowers, which I do need to put some more flowers in Pripyat, because Pripyat was quite known for their flowers. Because in this build here, when once we return to Pripyat in a sec, I do a big portion off camera, but I'll get to that later. But anyways, here is the swimming pool here that we were building. There is a shot of it. As you can see, it's got a large glass face to it, which is actually the back side, not the entrance side. But because of that, you know, the swimmers can look out and see outside, and the people walking by could probably, you know, or at least if they're at the right height. It was a little high up, so they probably couldn't actually see people swimming, but people in their apartments nearby could definitely look in and see people swimming. But this was going to be another one of the cool PO builds. I don't know what to call this, because whenever I used to say PO builds, I was just taking a building and, you know, adjusting with PO. But now this is, of course, something different. So still a PO build, but it's definitely a little more nuts. But yeah, I wanted to put in that glass face, and I wanted to put in the swimming pool, because, you know, I could have just used the plain prop windows that I used in the previous episode when I built the Palace of Culture with PO. And I mean, the available assets for windows, like prop windows, not just glass, but they're pretty much non-existent on the workshop. So I mean, it kind of looks a little funny to continue using that same prop over and over again. And I felt like this was, if I was going to do it at all and have like a hollow part of a PO building with actual see-through glass, this was going to be the perfect building, because, you know, it's a small area, just the pool. It's just a pool and diving boards, but it turns out pretty cool for sure. And I got another texture online for the building, just so I didn't have to keep reusing the same ones that I used before and found. But yeah, a couple of you were curious about maybe learning more about the process of finding textures online and actually putting them in PO and finding out exactly how to, you know, do this type of thing. So I'll probably make a little tutorial on that sometime soon-ish. If you're interested in that, let me know for sure, and I'll try and get that out sooner rather than later. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly cool, because, I mean, of course, this isn't too far off from making your own asset, because I know asset creators can whip out assets very quickly and easily, especially when they have been doing it for a while. And I'm certainly not there, although I'm learning a little bit slowly but surely. But it's something kind of cool to have a building in your city that really no one else can have. Not to say that I would prefer to have this be an actual asset, because there's always small details that are hard to recreate doing it this way that I found. I mean, since this is my most recent attempt building a building like this, it's definitely a lot better than my previous two that I built like this, with the roof textures, and just overall, this one's probably definitely my favorite so far, especially since it has an actual side of it in which you can see in. But yeah, like I said, it's kind of cool just having a building that is entirely unique to your city. But yeah, unfortunately, I can't release any of these buildings to the workshop since they're not actual 3D models. They are, you know, made from PO. So yeah, a couple of you asked, and yeah, sorry, it's just simply not possible. The only way I can do, you know, I can export this, I believe, through procedural objects and make it as a file, but you know, that can't be uploaded to the Steam Workshop. So I think for that, since I need somewhere to post a file, I think I'll just put that onto my Patreon. So if you happen to be a Patreon or a patron, then you will get access to these buildings once the series is over, because I also have to include the files for the textures I use. Otherwise, I'm not even sure if the building will show up. I imagine it'll just be a bunch of untextured cubes, which of course will not look nice. But yeah, I'll put that on my Patreon if I can figure that out, which I'm pretty sure it's quite simple. But yeah, that is where the buildings will be if you're interested. But now we are working on the diving board here, which is another big structure that I could place within the building there, which you can see through the windows. Because, I mean, I didn't go too detailed on it. I pretty much just did that angled little support arm there, and then a slightly smaller one, which is based on the actual diving board that was there in real life. But I didn't put any ladders or anything. Just I wasn't subscribed to one at the time, or any sort of like ladders or stairs that would fit there, and I didn't really feel like exiting to the menu and restarting the game, because, you know, even though it's a small save for the most part, it still of course takes time, and when I'm feeling it, when I'm really enjoying building it or building something, I just kind of want to, you know, build it and then not think about having to, you know, come back in, get back into the mood of building whatever I was building. But I mean, really, you really can't even notice it. I mean, in the cinematics, if you look hard, of course, you'll see there's no steps or stairs or anything, just a diving board. But, you know, I mean, the glass has a kind of, there's two different actual, like, not textures, but depending on where the sun's shining, it's either extremely clear and it almost looks like there's no glass there, or it's kind of like a blue tint, and that kind of covers up, you know, makes it less clear, so you can't as easily see what's inside. So I'm pretty sure when I made the cinematics, I made it so the sun was not straight on, so it was more just clear and not that blue color. But yeah, you'll see, of course, in the cinematics. But yeah, so mostly just finishing up. And yeah, as I was mentioning earlier, which I said we'd get back to once I had time, and that was the block that this particular building is in here. So like, see right now, you can see there's nothing else around it. It's just a bunch of grass, nothing there. And that will suddenly change in very short time. So I didn't include any of the apartment buildings or any of the public buildings in this particular block, just because you've already seen that in the second episode, I believe, of the series. And also, I think the next episode is going to be a lot of that. So there's still definitely some more apartment blocks that I need to build in the city, and I'll include that on, you know, camera on the next episode. So there's only so much you can show when it comes to those, because they're quite repetitive, you know, in this Soviet style architecture, and I imagine quite boring to watch in multiple episodes. So now you can see, if I zoom out, and right there, like, you can see those buildings suddenly appeared. And yeah, I mean, I include some views in the cinematics, but, you know, if there's something you're curious about that's in there that, you know, or that you want to see and you happen not to see in the cinematics, don't worry. Once I do the very final cinematic video where I show the entire city, I'll definitely make sure to get everything, and you'll see everything, and you know, everything will be in good view. So yeah, the only thing left here is just small detailing around the swimming pool here. As you see, I also detailed the roof a little bit off camera. I added some more textures there and some decals. It looks pretty cool, actually, rather than just a plain roof when I put on the ploppable surface. But anyways, yeah, so we're getting pretty close to the end of the episode here. Let me know, again, if you want me to try and finish this series off in one episode, or if I can take my time a little more and do it in 2 episodes. Let me know what you think on that. And yeah, anything else you want to comment. And I will see you all next time.